So I do want to welcome everyone. Hello and welcome to today's RPO Leadership Forum. For a couple of years, the Recruitment Process Outsourcing Association covered total talent as a topic in general terms. We did panels, we did blog posts, we talked about total talent as a holistic approach to workforce development based on filling the work needed regardless of job type. Today, I'm excited to hear about a real application of total talent. In particular, we will hear a case study of applying a total talent strategy to build a workforce for a $1 billion national real estate firm. This is Lamis Abu Rama with the Recruitment Process Outsourcing Association and host of the RPO Leadership Forum, a monthly webinar program presented by RPOA partners. I'm honored to have a first-time speaker to the program, Greg Gary, Senior Director of Business Development for Broadleaf. In his role, Greg is responsible for working with clients to build total talent management solutions that provide greater workforce visibility and insight, enhance compliance and risk mitigation, improve efficiency, and drive measurable and sustainable results. During his 28-year career in the human capital industry, Greg has focused on contingent labor, independent contract, compliance, and RPO and SOW services. He has significant experience developing and delivering strategic sourcing and spend management strategies in the areas of consulting, HR, and procurement. He maintains a track record of successfully implementing and managing supplier diversity strategies for several Fortune 500 organizations and government agencies. We are very honored to have him. Good afternoon, Greg, and welcome to the RPO Leadership Forum.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Lamise. It's very nice to see you again. And really what we wanted to do today was just talk a little bit about the transformation that we've seen within the industry and how now we've gone from just one service to now organizations looking at several different services. One of the things that we believe we've seen within the industry now is in the old days, companies used to say, listen, we have our contingent workforce over here. We have our direct, or we used to use the word perm workforce over here, and never shall the two intertwine. And now what we've seen over the years is the evolution to where a lot of organizations are now saying, listen, we need the talent. We need the talent. We want the talent. You find the talent, we'll figure out how to get them into the organization. And that's really been a big move and a big push that we've seen throughout the industry. And fortunately, we've been involved in that. So just a little bit about us. Again, as you heard already from Lamise, you've heard quite a bit about us. We've been around for over 60 years. In 14 years, we've been delivering specific outsourced recruiting services. As you can see on the bottom there, there's several different awards that we've received. We're also a woman-owned organization. And again, as I've told you, we've had a tremendous focus lately on that total talent management expertise. So what does that look like when we speak to that? As I mentioned before, be it on the temporary side or be it on the direct side, we want to provide a solution that has the ability to impact any of those areas. So as you look at this, you can see we have our MSP program. We have technology solutions, which include VMSs, ATS, direct hiring tools, the RPO, our SOW procurement management, IC compliance, and employer of record or payroll services. So as you can see within those, there's quite a few different solutions that we can provide to an organization. So let's take you through an actual live situation that we've had with one of our organizations. As Lamise had mentioned, one of our clients is a $1.8 billion publicly traded real estate management firm. They have over 1,100 employees in offices across the US. And what do? They provide updated technology-friendly homes for lease in desirable neighborhoods around the country. What was their situation when we first came in? Well, they had a quasi MSP in place, and they weren't really performing very well. They had an underperforming TA team internally that was challenging. It was a challenging market. that required a lot of high touch, and they needed a better process. Their present day process, it really wasn't that good. So it gives you the quick on them right in the beginning. Now, some of the challenges that they dealt with. Well, as this client and I had been speaking, it was right as the pandemic had started. So there was just a tremendous amount of just fear, confusion, and the unknown that we all had to figure out. Yet they knew as an organization, they needed to continue to keep moving forward, even though there was the challenge that was the pandemic. So this was a big challenge. They also knew they were going to have a challenge with their hiring managers. They were used to the way that it had been being done. And unfortunately, they just didn't care about whether it was most feasible, whether it was financially feasible, whether it was really the best way of doing business. There was just that belief of, hey, we don't really want to do any types of transitions at this time. We just want to keep moving forward. And then another one of the major challenges was they had awful visibility because they had an outdated ATS, as well as no other technology that was in there. So we sat down with them, and really the first thing that we did, and I would suggest to any of you, if you're considering doing anything, if you don't have a program and you're looking at doing something for the first time, or if you do utilize various programs and are considering making a change, the one thing I would suggest that you want to do up front is determine, what are you really trying to do? What is the goal behind this project, and how do you plan on getting there? And within that, also recognizing and appreciating that there's still going to be an unknown, that you want to make sure whatever those goals are, knowing that you want to leave some area for the emerging technologies or the changes that may occur in the industry. That's a critical piece. If you think about it right now today, think back 3 years, right? We often say to anyone when we're going out to market, if your program looks the same today, if it looks the same 3 years from now, we haven't done our job, because the industry changes. That's just the nature of the beast. So as you're sitting there, remember, what are you really looking to solve? What are you hoping to gain from a program? And where do you think there may be potential for growth over the years? Critical pieces. So we sat down with the client, recognized again, they had an MSP. They really needed to focus on the direct side and pull in some RPO, knowing that ultimately they wanted to revisit the MSP, the contingent side as well, but knew right now with change management, the way their managers were, they just wanted to focus on that RPO piece. So we sat down with them, learned a lot about what they were looking for, and we built a program for them. That original program, what we decided to do, we knew it was going to take 5 weeks to build, design, and implement a customized RPO solution. What we ended up coming up with was the framework of having, at any point, depending on their need, anywhere from 3 to 5 recruiters that were on the team. We had a recruiting coordinator who rotated throughout, and then we had 2 to 4 sourcers that were involved. And what was great about that, we have both a sourcing center here in the United States, also one in India. This was a critical part for them because they knew, hey, we know that we need to have support 24/7. And by setting up a type of a program in which we could split that between India and the US, it allowed us to accomplish that. We also had a couple of the recruiters that were sitting in India as well, because again, we wanted to not only source on that side, but be able to recruit for them as well. And we found this to be very, very successful. Again, with access to these recruiting resources, we also provided a lot of that flexibility and the ability to adapt at any time. We knew that was going to be critical because this client had a high volume of recs that they wanted us to focus on. So as we built that team, we then sat down and said, okay, we're going to implement a specific strategic sourcing plan. We worked together as a team. We gave them our industry knowledge based on what we knew, as well as what we knew about their organization. And we worked with them to build a sourcing plan nationwide. And again, a key component in that, this is something we do together. It's critical that we're working together and that we made sure that as we came up with some results, we both felt confident that that was the right thing to do, the right plan to move forward. And then we just report on it to make sure as the data comes in, it supports that plan that we built. We upgraded the client. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Just a quick question just to clarify the scope. Do you recall what's the volume of recs, like just to understand the size?
Absolutely. So we ended up, and it's actually going to be on the next slide, but there were over 400 recs per year that we came in, and I think we had over 400 hires per year as well. So that'll give you, and again, it was nationwide. And I will give you on the next slide, I'll actually break down the types of jobs that there was a focus on, if that works for you. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Not a problem. Excellent question. So we upgraded the client's technologies and platforms to attract a higher caliber talent and drive program efficiencies. Again, this was very big. They had no technology, no VMS. They were running a lot of manual processes. Their ATS, while they had an ATS, it wasn't the most efficient ATS. So we came in, reviewed everything that they had, and then made some recommendations and upgraded from there. We also then started to deliver, we built KPIs, something that key performance indicators, pieces that they hadn't had in there before. We built not only the KPIs, but built a dashboard for them. So we could deliver weekly reporting metrics on an online KPI dashboard. We also then implemented various business reviews with their executive sponsors so that we can monitor their performance. Big part, quickly identify and resolve any issues and refine the approach. And again, I want to say to that, I think that's a big part, issue resolution. Please, when you're going into this, there is no such thing as the perfect implementation, the perfect program, because we're humans and there's that human component to it. So one of the things that's critical is making sure that you're confident in the issue resolution, that the plan that you build, because there will be issues from time to time. And the key is getting over those as quickly as possible so we can continue to move on. As we were able to do this, after that first year, here were the results that we saw. Again, as you can see here, the types of jobs that we were filling. We hired over 400 candidates in that first year. We dropped their average time to fill. Originally, it was about 52 days. We were able to drop that down to 35 days through various efficiencies that we were able to put in. And we also dropped the interview to offer ratio. It was at 5-to-1, and then it came in at about 2.75-to-1. Some great results. We implemented a new ATS for their full-time employees through Workday. And then we also, and that was on step one. So what we then did was we came back after a year and said, okay, we've been able to build this on the RPO side. We've done a great job. You have everything. We brought in technology. And you're seeing the results. You've also learned how to deal with us. We've learned you, you've learned us, and we've built this very strong relationship. As they saw that take place and felt good about it, then it was time to move to phase two, which was bringing in that contingent piece. And again, similar scenario, the incumbent that they had was not really an MSP, but more of a master vendor program. So they weren't really incorporating a lot of other talent from other organizations. It was just the one. We were able to help them through in understanding the importance of actually building a program in which we're bringing in various suppliers, all with a purpose. And as we could do that, they would see a difference in cost. For sure, there would be a tremendous cost improvement based off of what they were doing. But even more importantly, they were going to see a higher level of candidate quality as well as speed to market, doing things or speed to find the candidates, get them through the process. All important things that they recognized they had not been receiving. So then they decided, okay, we want that total talent management. We want to bring in the MSP so that we can look at our contingent stuff, so that we can look at our SOW stuff, statement of work, and so that we can also look at bringing in talents that we have already here locally, or alumni talent, or even silver medalist talent. So with that in mind, we then said, okay, let's go ahead and build that second part of that solution. And we also knew we wanted to expand upon that RPO. So when we originally started, as I mentioned to you, we had 3 to 5 recruiters. Well, what we did, and 2 to 4 different sourcers. What we then did as we went through this program was realized we wanted to set it up regionally based. We wanted to put a recruiting presence in the East, recruiting presence in the West, recruiting presence in various places across the country, as well as sourcing and recruiting in both the US and India. So as you can see, that's kind of how the program took shape throughout. Once we were bringing in the contingent side of the house, it made the program look like this. And this was great. What we then did was brought in a talent curator who now had the ability to look at the opportunities and make determinations on the best ways to approach those people. So this is also where we brought in the direct sourcing component. For those of you, if you're not familiar, absolutely a wave of the present and into the future. What we then did, we brought in our some more technology so we could have the direct sourcing part connected, brought in a talent curator. As the opportunities presented themselves, we then had the opportunity to look at it and say, okay, is this something that we have the ability to directly source under the Broadleaf umbrella? And in those cases where we didn't, we'd already built strategic suppliers so that we knew any of those opportunities that we felt we couldn't get to, or if we knew we weren't going to be the best option, we had these other options that were there. That allowed this to take off and to take off well. The results that we've seen from that are here. We had a transition of incumbent suppliers, contractors. This was huge. The few suppliers that they had utilized, they really had rates that went all over the place. There was just no consistency amongst them. We were able to build that. We also created, and this was a big part, we created a new not to exceed markup rate for all the contingent professional roles within those partners. Again, as we went back, what we found was this was a huge cost savings because the partner that they were using, they were charging them markups of 75 to 85%, which are ridiculous. So we were able to not only fix that, bring that back into where it should be. We rationalized those suppliers, transitioned some of them over to payroll if they didn't want to come into the program, and then had the other ones set up with a standard markup rate that we all knew we could live with. As I had mentioned earlier, we implemented a direct sourcing strategy. Again, that's newer technology that's really come over the last year, 2 years. But within that focus, we did 2 things. We were able to build talent pools in advance, and our AI allowed us to continuously build talent pools that were specific to this organization. But the other 2 areas we had a tremendous focus were on alumni hiring, bringing back the talent they've already used, which is such a tremendous way to do it. And then we also focused a little bit of energy, excuse me, beyond that part, we also introduced a little bit of what we call that silver medalist. What we found is a lot of times we would have people interview and our hiring managers were liking 2 and 3 candidates, but only could select 1. Well, what's happening with that second and third candidate? Well, we built that strategy, made sure that those people were still being talked to on a consistent basis until there was an opportunity for them. Or in some cases, there may have been opportunities within the organization elsewhere. We just needed to have them linked. So bringing in that direct sourcing strategy really helped us quite a bit. We eliminated, and this was another big part, we eliminated management and transaction fees on all contingent labor. Because of the way we were able to build and structure this program, this took away a lot of the fees. And a lot of times previous to us, they were used to paying $300 per transaction, which there was just no need to do that any longer. We eliminated the need for an internal resource to manage contract labor. I can't see you all, but I'd say raise your hand if you have time to spend on a lot of administrative stuff connected to contingent labor. I'm going to go with no one raised their hand, right? So one of the things that we were able to do from a soft savings perspective is we had all of the resources. So now they no longer needed to do this. They no longer had to deal with the phone calls from the managers, nor from all of the suppliers that wanted to work with them. Everything could be focused on us. Again, we now became a single contract with we built a single contract with our client to where we were handling all of their labor needs. And another part that was great for them from an administrative part, also from a risk perspective, we became the single invoice. We would give them one single invoice for all labor utilization. And we held all the contracts with any of the suppliers that they were using. So this way, this also brought in, it insulated them from risk. So overall, what we've done is over a 2-year period, we've gone from starting an RPO program to building a total talent management program that included MSP, RPO, independent contractor compliance, SOW management, and payrolling. And again, now 2 years in, the program has gone very strong. We've seen over 1,000 hires total, and we continue to move forward. And that is when I will stop talking and open it up now to questions.
Very good. Thank you so much, Craig. And I neglected to mention this at the beginning, but we are taking questions. So if you have any, also one of the common questions I forget to address at the beginning is that the webinar is being recorded, and we will have the recording on the RPOA website by tomorrow. So you get to digest all of this great information. As we wait for questions, I do want to ask Greg, thank you so much for you and your team for putting this together. Broadleaf is a great member of the association, and we are happy to endorse the brand and the name. But I also ask you to make this presentation educational and not infomercial, and you definitely delivered on that. There's a lot of education here and understanding how a total talent solution can come together, and the great value that you see. I don't see questions yet from the audience, so I am gonna ask a couple here. One of the things that you mentioned is that employers should have their talent acquisition program should change over time because the environment changes, because their needs change, and so forth. Is that something that you typically build with your clients? So do you visit the program? Do you typically, just like you mentioned, this looks like the project evolved over time or engagement with your clients. So can you talk about this? Is it part of your standard process with clients?
Yes, that's an excellent question, Lamise. And I would tell you, as I can think, and man, I've been in this industry for almost 30 years, as I can think, there are very few programs that aren't going to change. And as you mentioned, and really we see the main factors connected to that. Technology is always one of them, right? As our artificial intelligence has become a thing, that's been a big change. And the various ways that we can be creative within our companies, that's also something that changes within the industry, right? We weren't really talking about independent contractors the way we do today. And even with COVID, now we've seen how we've gone so much more remote than we have been in the past. Well, that's a big difference. And how does that impact you? That's going to be something you need to address. And so one of the things that we've done, and it's worked well for us, we let everybody play in their lane. Our recruiters, your job is to recruit. Our sourcers, your job is to source. What we have are delivery directors and others. Well, your job is to stay ahead of the industry, to understand what's happening within the industry, where the industry is going, and relaying that to our clients. And then together, we're looking at new solutions that might work, working with the client to determine, do you believe that this might be the best solution? As that happens, we then build it, and we test it out. We start to try it. And again, this is where we're heavy on data at that point. We want to make sure we set our goals, our KPIs, our SLAs. We want to set them. And then we want to really just make sure, are we hitting the mark on that? And in most cases, we're hoping we are. But if not, what can we adjust? What do we need to tweak so that we can really hit that goal or that mark that we're looking for? So it's a process, us first with our delivery directors, but then working hand in hand with you as your internal team changes as well, not just that external, but that internal team as they change and the political landscape changes, making sure that we're continuing to communicate so that we there's business continuity, but not only that, that we can be successful and stay ahead of the game as we continue forward.
So you give a great example of how you stay ahead of the game when you shared about direct sourcing as something that you introduced to your clients. So within also our RPO space, direct sourcing has been a buzzword, I would say, over the last couple of years. So for the audience, for the sake of keeping this as educational webinar, can you share with our audience what is direct sourcing in 30 seconds or so?
Absolutely. So direct sourcing is a newer way to really build new talent communities outside of the ones that you're already familiar with. Typically, if you look at it, most of your research or your sourcing is done in your traditional ways, the Indeeds, all of the various technologies that we know over there. And it's usually pulling in people that are looking for jobs who have their information listed on job boards. When you look at direct sourcing, it's a different way. It's people that have they're warmer people. They're people we have touched. They're people that have interviewed previously. They're people that have worked for your customer or worked for the client or the organization in the past. It's a different group of people, a different level of talent than what we've had in the past. And then you add in the AI component, which is that technology part that allows us to not only look at the people that are in that database, but also stretch beyond and look at potential people who should have grown within their roles. Like 3 years ago, they were here. Well, AI lets us know that they should be here now, and then gives us the ability to pull that type of talent into a program as well.
This is probably the best definition of direct sourcing I've ever heard, Greg.
Well, you just needed a non-intelligent person to figure it out and tell you, that's all.
Just keep it at our level, exactly.
Right.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, if we don't have questions from the audience, or if they have it beyond this webinar, is there any contact information you'd like to share?
Absolutely. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm more than willing to answer any questions, provide any information I can. Again, my name is Greg Gary. Don't worry if you accidentally call me Gary, it's okay. And my email address, just to make it even harder, is Gary G, G-A-R-Y-G @broadleafresults.com. Please feel free to reach out at any time, and I'll do everything I can to get back to you within 24 hours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And with that, if I may take the screen share and ask you to stop yours, I just have a quick information I'd like to share.
Did you get it back?
I think I did. Let me find my screen here. Just 1 second. All right, let's see. Do you see my screen now?
I do.
All right, very good. So I just want to introduce the audience here who are newer to the RPOA about the association. The Recruitment Process Outsourcing Association is a member-driven and mission-driven organization serving the global RPO ecosystem and striving to be the place to go for RPO. Our mission is to nurture a collaborative community where thought leadership can be created and curated to educate the marketplace about RPO. As an organization, the RPOA serves the RPO ecosystem. As I mentioned, this includes anyone in talent acquisition interested in RPO. Our corporate members, including Broadleaf and technology sponsors, provide the primary funding for the association. Our community membership is free and open to anyone, and we currently have over 5,000 community members. We also have strategic partnerships that add value to our members, including Everest Group, IDC, and Clearly Rated. We produce educational content in collaboration with corporate members and sponsors. Our content is focused on talent acquisition trends and best practices for the RPO community. We host 2 active blogs, produce a monthly newsletter, and 2 webinar programs, including this webinar program. You're part of the RPO Leadership Forum. It's a monthly webinar series scheduled for the 3rd Tuesday of each month. These are typically 30-minute webinars presented by RPOA members. You can find upcoming events on our RPOA website under the Events tab. Our second webinar program is the RPOA Expert Panel, and we typically produce 3 to 4 expert panels a year. You can access webinar recordings and other content through the RPO Academy on the RPOA website. And with this brief overview of the RPOA, I'd like to conclude today's webinar. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Please stay connected, stay engaged, and stay informed of what's happening in the talent and RPO world by tuning into the RPOA, the place to go for RPO. I would like to sincerely thank our guest, Greg Gary. Thank you so much for a very educational and engaging presentation. And thank you all for attending. Look forward to seeing you in a future event.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Great seeing you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.